It's Friday, the 20th of August 2021. Welcome to the Fear and Greed Business Headlines, the business news you need in just 5 minutes. I'm Sean Aylmer. And if 5 minutes isn't enough, then find more news and interviews in our longer daily podcast called Fear and Greed. In today's headlines, the unemployment rate falls to a 12-year low, but it's the calm before the storm, with hundreds of thousands of jobs expected to go by the end of September. Plus, global market sell-off amid fears of an economic slowdown. Australia achieves a one-jab vaccination rate of 50% as COVID cases soar, and how Snoop Dogg helped Treasury Wines make a profit. Our lead story today, in what's best described as the calm before the storm, the unemployment rate fell to a 12-year low last month of 4.6%, thanks to fewer people looking for work. With lockdowns in New South Wales, Victoria and the ACT now in place, the rate is likely to be the lowest for some time, as the number of unemployed is set to soar. The Bureau of Statistics survey was taken in the middle of July, before Victoria closed down. The participation rate nationally fell to 66%, but it dropped much more sharply in New South Wales. AMP Capital Chief Economist Shane Oliver said adjusting for the drop in participation and the number of people working 0 hours, the real unemployment rate was closer to 5.5%. He expects New South Wales and Victoria to lose about 300,000 jobs this month and next. Even Federal Treasurer Josh Frydenberg wasn't putting much faith in the figures. He said hitting a 12-year low in unemployment should be a cause for celebration, but it wasn't. Mr. Frydenberg said the government expected the economy to contract by about 2% during the current quarter, a figure that most market economists say is too optimistic. This week, we've seen weak wages growth and signs that the employment market has come to a shuddering halt. Any thought of interest rates rising any time in the next couple of years is definitely off the agenda. In overseas news, there were some pretty big moves across global markets over the past 24 hours. Wall Street was mixed overnight. There were big sell-offs in European markets, with both London's FTSE and the Stoxx Europe 600 closing down 1.5%. The French bourse was down nearly 2.5% after 112 people died of coronavirus, the most in almost 3 months. Asian markets were lower, commodity prices were lower, and the Aussie dollar tumbled. Fears about COVID-19 stalling the recovery and comments from the Federal Reserve Board minutes that it might reduce bond purchases this year underpinned the drops. Toyota said it will cut global production next month by 40% as it struggles to find semiconductor chips for its vehicles. It had intended to manufacture 900,000 cars next month, but now that will be about 500,000. Toyota's share price fell nearly 5% yesterday. And a study in the UK has found that COVID-19 vaccines are less effective against the Delta variant, with the Pfizer vaccine losing effectiveness in the first 90 days of full vaccination. However, the jab, along with the AstraZeneca inoculation, still staved off a majority of coronavirus infections. Locally, National Cabinet has agreed to open up the vaccine rollout to people aged 16 to 39 years from the end of next month. That's an additional 8.6 million people able to access the Pfizer vaccine. More than half of all eligible Australians have now received at least one jab of a COVID vaccine, a milestone the Prime Minister lauded yesterday, though the opposition Labor Party, among others, pointed out that globally Australia has done poorly. There are now more than 300,000 doses being administered each day. Meanwhile, the COVID outbreak gets worse. New South Wales yesterday reported 681 new local coronavirus cases and one more death. Media reports this morning suggest there could be an easing of restrictions in New South Wales around bars, restaurants and gyms once the 70% vaccination rate is achieved. In Victoria, there were 57 recorded cases, the highest of the current wave. Fortunately, the vast majority were in isolation, though, as we've learnt, the Delta variant needs only a few people in the community to spread widely. Victorians spent their 200th day in lockdown yesterday since the outbreak of COVID back in February last year. There were 16 new cases in the ACT and the territory remains in lockdown. Yesterday morning, I talked about what people did during lockdowns. They ate pizza and bought lottery tickets, or at least that's what the profit results of Domino's and Tabcorp suggested. What they didn't do is go to casinos. Star Entertainment said earnings fell 5% last financial year on the back of shutdowns and restrictions. Even when it was operating, the international border closures hurt business. But as the very strong performance of Star's Gold Coast Casino shows, people head back to the gaming tables once everything reopens. Treasury Wine Estates had some good news. Notwithstanding the punitive tariffs put on its exports to China, The winemaker reported slightly higher revenue last year and an improved profit. It also upped its dividend. As an aside, several years ago, Treasury did a deal with Snoop Dogg to be brand ambassador for 19 Crimes, the wine brand Treasury sells in the US. It's paying off. Sales of 19 Crimes reached 5 million cases last financial year, or about 16% of the group's total. That's the Fear and Greed business headlines for today. Make sure you hit follow so you get it every morning and search for our longer daily podcast called Fear and Greed. We also release a daily interview. Today we're talking to the CEO of Defence Bank. Don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook and Twitter, or go to fearandgreed.com.au. I'll be back later with the afternoon market report. I'm Sean Aylmer. Have a great day.